edition of The Right Stuff, Places and Times, going back to that place where you were the happiest, coming up next right here on WPJC. You are listening to the best, the only place to be on Tuesday nights. That's right, you're listening to The Right Stuff, and you're at the right place at the right time. From England to Canada, from Detroit to the Poconos, we are showcasing Christian authors worldwide, giving you tips, tools, techniques, and resources for you, the writer, to hone and perfect your craft. Tune in every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time right here on WPJC 104.5. And your host, Parker J. Cole. So glad you're able to join me for this edition of The Right Stuff. Like I said in the introduction of our show, we are going to be going back to the places where we are the most happiest, where we learned a lot about ourselves, and that's usually at a certain place and at a certain time. So I want you to stay tuned right there for a wonderful show with a wonderful poet, author, Turfer, and his book, Places and Times. I just want to thank you all for your support of my books, Many Strange Women, The Other Man, letting you know in just 21 days, Vengeful Vows, the third book of the Sins of the Flesh series that is published by Alexio, will be available. It's the third book. I'm very excited about that. I have been doing on Facebook 21 fun facts about the Sins of the Flesh series that you may or may not know. So if you follow me on Facebook, go ahead and just keep looking at my posts, because every day I'm going to post something you didn't know about the Sins of the Flesh series, some fun fact that you may be interested in and may find interesting to know about the series. And of course, I want to thank all of you for supporting The Right Stuff and WPJC 104.5. This network is available because of your support. So thank you so much for being with me and supporting this show. I have been doing this show for 3 years, thank the Lord. Since July of 2013, I've been doing this show, and you guys have followed me the entire way, and I really want to thank you all so much for your support. If you want to call in, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #RightStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff radio show. We'll be right back.
Authors, are you looking for a new way to get your book in the hands of new audience of targeted buyers? Then a virtual book tour is for you. Right now, virtual book tours is an excellent opportunity for you to introduce your book and who you are as an author. Launching your book is very important. A virtual book tour will connect you with readers. We at WNL, we specialize in book tours, book blasts, radio tours, cover reveals, and Facebook chat. Promoting and marketing your book is what we do. Online publicity, the exposure and the publicity is what you need. Let us help you reach new readers and a new audience. We take care of everything so you don't have to. We set up the tour for you. We connect you with bloggers to advertise your book by way of interviews, guest posts, and reviews. If you are an author of a newly published book, have an upcoming release, or just want to give a previously published book new life, a virtual book tour is your answer. Check our tours out at www.wnlbooktours.com. Visit me on Facebook. I am the owner, Paulette Harper.
God gives humans the gift of making amazing stories to glorify Him. At speculativefaith.com, our ministry is to help fans explore fantasy, science fiction, supernatural stories, and beyond from an intentional and biblical Christian perspective. We share daily articles and have extensive archives tackling hot topics like end times beliefs, the art of writing, creative excellence in the Christian subcultures, discernment, sex, magic, Harry Potter, and space aliens and the Bible. If you are a parent or anyone else with a discriminating palate, our reviewers explore fantastical novels, movies, television, and games in light of God's beauty, goodness, and truth. Want to find Christian stories? The Spec Faith Library lists every fantastical novel we can find from a Christian author. It's all part of our mission to discern, engage, and enjoy fantastical human creativity in honor of our Creator, Jesus Christ. SpeculativeFaith.com, exploring fantastical stories for God's glory.
We're and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J, and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, I'm so glad you're able to join me today. Like I said, we're going to have a great time as we talk about those places and times where we were the happiest, where we learned about ourselves, and we're going to do that through the medium of poetry. It's so interesting because some of you have been following me since the beginning. You know that I've always wanted to have poets on my show, but for some reason, some of the poets that I reach out to are so nervous to come into the show. And so this year, I have been so blessed to have at least 3 poets on the show recently. And I'm glad to have my fourth one here. And his name is Dr. Arthur Turfa. He is the author of the book Places and Times, which is a collection of poetry. And one of the reviews on Amazon says, Places and Times is a collection of poems by Arthur Turfa that are full of beautiful descriptions from America to Europe to Mexico. I love the slow and steady pace of Turfa's verse, powerfully filled with lots of emotion. I thought the poems were all well presented in the best possible order so that midway through you find yourself on the summit, seeing the drop ahead and the inevitable powerful halt at the end. This is a collection I will hang on to and read whenever I want to understand the ups and downs of life. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our guest co-host and contributor today, Dr. Arthur Turfa. Arthur, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Parker, and thank you so very much for having me on your show tonight.
And let me thank you as well for taking time out of your schedule to be with me on the show. I never take it lightly when our guest co-hosts are on the show with me. I'm so glad you were able to do this. I was looking so forward to the show because I see you all the time on social media. You're always wonderful posts, wonderful things you're always sharing. So I'm so happy that you're able to be with us on the show to talk about your collection of poetry and your collection, what you're doing in the writing world as well. So thank you for being with us again, too. My first question is always rather simple because I can read a bio, but it doesn't tell us who you are in your own words. So go ahead, in your own words, tell us who you are.
I'm a native Pennsylvanian, where I guess I have lived most of my life in several lengthy periods. I've traveled across the country. I've been to Europe, I think 7 or 8 times, South Korea once. I'm a retired veteran with, a retired reservist with veteran status. That's from the U.S. Army. I don't really believe in the zodiac, but I say tongue-in-cheek that I'm a Gemini, so I guess that meant I had to have 2 careers. I've been bivocational as a Lutheran pastor and as a teacher on various levels, usually at high school, sometimes at a tech college or a 4-year school.
You have a lot of experience in just those few words, Arthur, especially when you say you went to Europe several times. I'm thinking to myself, oh, my gosh, I wish I could say I went to Europe several times. So where did you go when you went to Europe? What places did you visit?
Well, I was a German major at Penn State. And so the first few trips I restricted myself mainly to Germany because I wanted to get better at speaking it. But Germany's like a second home to me. I also have been to Barcelona. I've been to France. And for France, I'd say yes, see Paris. But the smaller places, towns are really neat too. I've been to Italy, which was just lovely. I've been to the Netherlands and the other Low Countries. I've got to visit places where my family came from, near in Belgium, in Germany, and in Hungary.
Oh my! Wow, I can. I'm joking when I say that, but I hope I can eventually go to those same places too. I've always wanted to go to Europe. I've been to Europe in my imagination. I don't know how many times, especially because I like historical fiction. So I've been to Europe in the historical times many, many times. So looking forward to eventually having the ability to say that as well, Arthur, because that's absolutely phenomenal. I would say that traveling often gives you a different perspective about life. So what have you learned through your travels to different places? What have you learned about yourself or even about interacting with other people from different places? What have you learned from those experiences?
Well, through travel and in some of these places I write about, I've lived at for a couple of years, or in terms of my deployment to Germany, 15 months. But it's taught me, Parker, that people really are pretty much the same the world over. I've also learned that the more you try to learn a little bit about them, even if you limit it to please and thank you, hello, goodbye in their own language, to try to understand a little bit about their culture, they're amazed because, unfortunately, whether it's right or wrong, they think most Americans don't care about other cultures or don't want to learn another language. So when they meet someone who is interested in them for who they are, they really open up, and you see much more than you would otherwise.
I like how you said people are pretty much the same all over. And you may laugh. I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but it's called Twilight Zone with from back in the day, back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And I recently saw the show People Are the Same All Over, or like all over, and basically went to Mars in the show. And they the people who went to Mars ended up being in a zoo for humans from Earth.
Yes.
And the guy makes this comment. He says, you know what, you're right. People are the same all over. And it's just when we get past the misconfusion, the miscommunication, our own biases and prejudices and stereotypes, we pretty much find that the person who looks different from me is pretty much the same as I am. Like you said, please and thank you. You know, appreciate who I am as a person. Yeah. I really like how you said that. Do you think with the way our current society is, because we tend to connect via virtually, but we lose the personal aspect that comes from this virtual world that we in. Do you think if more people try to come out their comfort zones, like traveling, do you think maybe that will help with all the confusion we have? Do you think it's a good idea? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think traveling certainly can broaden your experience, especially if you don't try to be connected at home, back at home, while you're in Europe or Asia or wherever. The sad thing, and this does come up in some of my writing, how I look back to my own childhood, and you knew your neighbors and you knew a lot about them, whether good or bad. You knew whom you could trust, whom you had to watch out for, but you knew your neighbors. Now we can have friends all over the world, but not know the people down the street from us. Exactly.
It's funny that you said that too, because I remember back in 2003, the whole eastern coast of the U.S. went out because one of the electric grids went out or something like that back in 2003. I will never forget it. I was probably in my 20s, and I was in my 20s, and everything went out, and we were all laughing about it because we went outside and we saw our neighbors. We all joked, hey, I haven't seen my neighbor in I don't know how long. So people came outside, started laughing, joking, talking. Someone put up a barbecue. Just had a good time outside. And I remember thinking, as soon as the lights came back on, everyone ran back inside the house. So it was like, okay, that's good, that's fine. But you're absolutely right. I have a lot of connections via social media online, but there's people in my own complex. I live in a condo complex that I don't even know who they are. I mean, I know most of them. I do most of them, but some of the newer people, I haven't really gone out to see that. So that is something that you're very true about, that we knew who we were able to talk to back then, but we don't know who we talk to now, but we can have very good, close, personal relationships with people online. And I think it's probably the aspect of the virtual world. So, also, let me ask you this question. So you're traveling, you're doing different things. So are you still fluent in German, or do you teach it still? I mean, how does that work out for you?
Oh, I'm still very fluent. I've kept it up over the years. Even when I wasn't teaching, I've served some German-speaking parishes. Or I've just used it to speak with friends, to do some research. But I'm currently in my end of my 9th year, with a few more left, as a German and English teacher at a high school in the Midlands of South Carolina. And I enjoyed everything very much there.
We are talking today to Dr. Arthur Turfa. He is the author of the poem collection called Places in Time. And if you want to talk to him, you certainly can. All you have to do is call in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #WriteStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and when we come back, more with Arthur and Places and Times. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guest on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Have you read the latest issue of Sormag Digital, the award-winning literary magazine for multicultural readers and writers? Sormag Digital is available quarterly and showcases interviews with the best authors in multicultural literature. Sormag Digital features craft and business articles for those interested in writing. If you're looking for a good book, check out our book reviews on what's hot in multicultural literature. For writers looking for new readers to get in front of, Sormag Digital is the perfect place to introduce your book. We offer advertising spaces that fit your promotional budget. Get your free subscription on sormag.com or order a print issue on magcloud.com. If you would like more information about Sormag Digital, check us out on sormag.com or contact us at sormag@yahoo.com. Sormag Digital is the magazine for multicultural readers and writers.
Question: if you write a book, everybody will rush out to buy it. Obvious answer: no. If you were a celebrity or if you had a huge marketing budget, then maybe you can get a lot of exposure for your book. Another solution would be to check out joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com is a promotion and marketing service with access to over 1/3 of a million followers on Twitter. joeytweets.com has 3 packages available to fit any budget. That's joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com. Get some serious exposure for your books.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guest, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, I am so glad you're able to join me today. We are talking to poet Arthur Turfa. He is the author of Places in Time, and Places in Time is a collection of poems that he wrote during his travels, and it's very nostalgic, as a lot of the reviewers are saying about his poetry collection, and it just takes you to a nice, comfortable place of where you were the happiest, where you learned something about yourself, some of the places in your memory or throughout your lifetime that just brought you a lot of great joy or great memories, and he's with us to share some of his work in that collection. So, Arthur, once again, thank you for being with us on the show and sharing your collection with us. So I would love to hear one of your poems from Places in Time.
Well, wonderful. I have one right in my hand. It's the first one in the book, and when I put it together, I hoped there would be some kind of connection to it, a progression, as it were. The review you mentioned picked that up, and I was really glad for that. My second books have in manuscript form is much more intentionally put together, but I was blessed with this one. The first poem is entitled "At Times I Want to Ride." At times I want to ride a chestnut horse over wide, undulating, endless steppes, with hooves pounding out a staccato beat, our heads lowered to enhance speed, pointing toward the elusive white stag, ever within our sight, ever out of reach, leading to verdant valley far away. Years ago, I only kept the gas tank half full in my 72 Duster Slant 6. Great was the temptation to drive beyond the mountains hazy with residual smog, looming as I dropped from the 55 on slender concrete rim down to the San Diego freeway towards Irvine. The time had not come for me to leave. Now, my life no longer fits into a car. The white stag has blended into the mists, and I am content to be where I am. Dismounting, I set the horse to pasture and sit sheltered by the tall pine trees. The end.
What I love about that is just the visuals that I get from listening to the poem. I love that. And I can also tell just as the poem goes, you're going from someone, at least this is my interpretation, author, you're going from someone who's living a fast-paced kind of life. And I kind of think of, the first thing that came to mind was a working mom who works, goes to work, maybe goes to school, come home, take care of the kids, come back, do this, do that. Then they go over here. And then slowly as they get older, time goes on. The kids are grown. The kids have their own pursuits. They leave the house, and you relax. That's one of the interpretations I'm getting from the poem. But go ahead, tell what you were thinking as you were developing that poem.
Well, I was thinking about a time in my life that was an important transition for me when I thought the career I was planning on wasn't, for whatever reason, going to work out for me in the way that I envisioned, and that I had, in fact, received a call to do something else. It was when I was in graduate school at UC Irvine, and I had the seed to go to seminary, bouncing around in my head for a while. But as I worked in the local parish and thought about some things, and I felt myself being tugged that way, which meant relocating to the Midwest. But and then what the other thing in the White Stag is the legend of how the Hungarians, or the two tribes who formed that our group. Split up, but also the White Stag, which ended up in the place of country. So I feel attached to that, but also that I think things are directed. God's led me to the place where I'm supposed to be.
I think that's just a good way of expressing that. I know I totally got something different from it, but it could be because I was listening to it as opposed to reading it. And I think that's the beauty of poetry, is that poets leave that open interpretation from it. Because the first thing I thought of, the white stag is the horse that moves us forward, keep us going, vitality, virility, energy, purity, because you have pure purpose. All these kind of things are going through my head. And so I love that, but I like how you put the personal spin on it, because God was leading you somewhere else where you thought it's supposed to be. And I doubt that you regret that decision, even though maybe at the time you may have some,
right. And it was a major decision because, I left some good friends. Of course, I got some others along the way, but, you look back on it now and wonder, well, how did I ever do that, or would I ever do that again? But I think when you have made the right decision or accepted the right decision, then there's that sense of peace or shalom, and everything falls into place. And I left a place in California where I did not have to leave. And I was able to have success and have satisfaction elsewhere, and that's been really good.
I think you bring something to mind that I want you to expand on, author, and it's when you get to that place that God is leading you, where God leads you to that place, and you may be reluctant to go there. You may feel the nudge, but you're reluctant to go there. And with places and times, like there's a collection of poems about experiences and places you've been and how they all come down together. So go ahead and expand on that. People may be feeling that tug. God may be leading them, let's say, to a ministry, or leading them to a different country, leading them to leave their jobs and maybe start their own business or whatever. Go ahead and expand on that, because I know you're a retired pastor as well. So go ahead and expand on that.
Well, the thing is that is you're called, and I think everyone has a call, especially Christians. That's a key of Lutheran theology. That's not just those of us who go to seminary, or those of us who have official leadership, ordained leadership roles in the church, or leadership roles. We all have a calling, and that calling can change or be tweaked through our lives. But and some of the poems talk about a door that's been closed either permanently or temporarily, but one that's been closed, and how you deal with it. It's not a much a sense. It can be a sense of loss, but you need to. If you don't know exactly where you're going ahead next, you need to find a place where you can be restored, where you can be renewed, and the place where you're meant to be. It's nice to be able to come back to some of the places too.
I love that connection to where we came from and to where we're going, because I think sometimes, and it can happen to any of us, so I'm not going to put myself out of, like, this happens to other people but me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put myself out the running. But I think when we get to a place that, I won't say like prosperity, as much as in a good place where God has us, sometimes we forget that there was a struggle to get there. And I think about for myself with my show and my books, and I remember how my thoughts were different back then. And in order to bring me to a place where I can help more authors and my more books get written and things of that nature, I'm just very grateful for that, because I remember when it wasn't like that. And do you think if we don't recall these places and times, we don't recall that time when we were struggling to make ends meet, or we were struggling to get our business off the ground, or we were struggling our vocation as pastors and ministers, if we forget those places and those times, they do affect our present. What would you say to that, author?
I would agree, Parker. Sometimes I think we tend to make too much of, well, until a certain date, I was doing the wrong thing, nothing was good, but then on this day, after this date, everything's fine. Again, I'll go back to my, theology, and at the same time, we're saint and sinner. I do some really good things. I do some things I shouldn't do, and I know it. Likewise, you look back and you can say, well, this place was completely terrible. Well, it wasn't completely, because it did teach me something. And I look and I say, well, there were some good things there. I look at where I'm at now or where I want to go, and I may say it's really great, but then there are some bumps along the way. What I've noticed looking over the past, even some of the worst times I've had, I still felt that God was there. I wasn't alone in this. I feel that, the old thing, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that I figure there's something I needed to know. Maybe it's to avoid this type of situation in the future. So should it presents itself, I can say no, or to do what it takes so that I'm never in this situation again.
And I think that's good that you said that as well. I totally agree with you there, because we can look back on the bad things. And sometimes I know for myself, I remember something I did that was absolutely awful as a child. And you can chalk it up to childish ignorance, but when I look back on it, I just cringe. I can't believe I did something like that. And I think, and even now I think, what will possess you? And I have no idea what possessed me. But I remember, so I won't ever make that mistake again, or never ever be that way again. And that's why we have to remember those places and times. That's why I think it's so fitting that your book is called Places and Times, as you talk about your travels, and then have your poems talk about different things and different things you've learned, different things you've seen, ups and downs, and the highways of life.
And the people who show up in that, even though I don't reference them in the title as such, but I think if you work through the poems, you'll see these people I refer to, maybe not always by name, and some of them may recognize themselves if they were to read it. Others wouldn't, and that's okay, because it's not just me as a hermit or in the wilderness. There's people there who help me along, even if they don't know they're doing it, even if that wasn't their intention. I see that as they're being messengers of grace.
I like how you said that, and we're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and when we come back, we're going to be hearing more from author's book, Places and Time. If you want to call in and weigh in, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485, and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, hashtag Right Stuff with your questions and comments. If you're holding a line and want to ask a question, simply press 1, and we'll take your question. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Jesus said, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. Listen to our internet radio station at touchofgodradio.org, where you will find out your true identity in Christ. You can use the light that is within you to replace the darkness in this world. Go into all the world today with Touch of God Radio.
What's up, y'all? This is your bro, Robbie Newborn, Christian rap evangelist ministry leader and founder of GDT Walking Out Ministries, a drug awareness, peer mentoring, and counseling ministry that spreads a message of hope to the hopeless, bringing the gospel to the street. I am a recovery specialist, intervention, drug prevention professional, so if you're looking for a counselor or counseling or someone to just talk to, please call me at 484-525-9832. My website is www.rdsjr.com. God bless you all from all of us at GDT, Walking Out Ministries, and Team God. Peace and Christ love. Come on.
Hi, I'm Sherry with the Lemonade Stand. As the weather warms, your risk of exposure to mosquito and tick-borne illnesses increases. Please keep these tips in mind when outdoors. Wear light-colored clothing, apply repellent, avoid high grassy areas, check yourself after returning, and remove any attached ticks promptly only with a tick removal device or tweezers, avoiding any home remedies. This has been a community service announcement courtesy of the Lemonade Stand.
This broadcast of the PJC Media Network seeks to present wholesome, thought-provoking, and entertaining content. However, the views expressed by the hosts of PJC Media are theirs and theirs alone. They do not reflect the views of this network or its affiliates. Please utilize listener discretion. We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. I'm the queen of Tuesday nights, and we're having a great time with my guest co-host and contributor today, author Turf. He is the author of the book, Places and Times. And Places and Times is a collection of poetry that really encapsulates his travels from Europe, Mexico, and across the United States, and just full of a lot of nostalgia about happy times, learning about yourself at different places. I'm going to read another review that we received from Places and Time on Amazon.com, and the review says, a collection of well-crafted poems with an emphasis on sensory detail. Places and Times takes the reader on a word voyage across America. The author's voice is resonant and wise, soft and searching. My favorite was The Island. I love the chance to hear author recite some of his poetry as the smooth lines invite a personal connection and human aspect, and that is author Turfa's Places and Time. And author, once again, thank you so much for being with us on the show. And I'd love to hear another poem from your collection.
Well, thanks for having me, Parker. It's a very enjoyable time. This poem is entitled The Island. No islander am I, but all the same I wander green fields that go forever, rolling on towards a distant tree line, or extending along to a sheltered cove. At times I am invited, encouraged even, to stay for longer duration, taking my place alongside the others, savoring the stillness of hallowed space, watching colors brightening with the sun, and listening to wafting songs of praise resounding over and over again. Contentment I find there from distant waves and storms that come slack crashing onto the coast, until the stinging subtle reminder that I am sojourner, not citizen. Then turns my gaze once again to the strand and beyond to the mainland, hovering as it were above the waves, beckoning me to return and remain there. On the mainland I indeed have a place high on the hill. From its wooded crest my gaze penetrates the mists which are covering the island. I have memories of the green pleasant hills, but now I turn inland to see the beckoning and distant hills. The end.
Author, I really like the imagery that came to mind as I was listening to the poem, and I can see how that reviewer really appreciated the poem. Mm-hmm. And just to let our listeners know, that wasn't planned. I had no idea what author was going to read, and I just randomly picked a review. So our listeners, I did not plan that, but I'm just so glad to just feel exact what the reviewer said about the sensory detail. And that's one aspect I think your poetry is just letting our listeners hear is the visualization. I can be on the island. And as I was listening, I was on the island and I could see trees. I see other people with me on the island. But at the same time, when you're on the island, you can feel alone, even though there's people around you, because you're so segregated from everything else. You're surrounded by water. And I like how you said the water kind of calls back to me from the mainland. You know, come with us, come back to the riotous waves and the ocean. That's what I'm getting from it. That's my interpretation. So my interpretation.
You're on, well, you're right. You're on the island, and you're not going to be there forever. I mean, you're not from there, but you're allowed to be there. And the chance is that one day you're told, well, your time here is over. You can be told very politely, but you know it's time to go. And one reason I chose that is a lot of people have enjoyed it. You know, just from the things that you picked out, the imagery, seeing the trees and the island and the water and the mainland and all that, but also that there must be something in that really draws people. Maybe they have felt that way on their own islands.
Exactly. And sometimes we see island living. When we hear about people living on an island, we think that, oh my gosh, that must be paradise. You know, on the same time, the person who's on the island seems like this is not paradise, it's a prison. It's just the way you can interpret that. And I think maybe that's what's reaching people, is just the different ways you can interpret that island, and whether or not the call to the mainland is really that call of getting away from the island, or it's a positive call, negative call. That's what I love about poetry, is that open interpretation. You may have had a purpose behind how you want it to be presented, but then you allow that open interpretation. So as you talk about the island, I will almost say that it's almost reminiscent of our walk here on Earth. Like we're only sojourners here, like you said in the poem. We're not here forever, thank goodness, because it's getting bad. So we're not here forever. And so, what would you say to that?
I would agree with you. I also would say, as I read over these poems, I wrote the bulk of them maybe 4 to 5 years ago. And as I read over them, of course I remember most of what went into them, what was happening or what I was feeling, experiencing. And I get some new insights in them, either from things that are going on now, or as I look back and I say, oh, I can see, I'm connecting some dots from a few years ago. And that's the nice thing about poetry. It's, I think if it's decent poetry, however you would define that, there's always something new. Just like you listen to a Beethoven symphony, or even the Beatles song. There can be something new that comes out and hits you. As I'm driving back and forth to school or around, I pass by a field, a bit of woods, what have you, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I glance over and I see something that I had never seen before. In fact, that green field that goes on forever is within 2 miles of where I'm sitting now.
I remember having that same experience rather recently. I was going to work, and there's a park on my way to work. I had never seen it before until recently, and I think the reason why I only saw it was because I was in a passenger seat. My husband was taking me, and I was looking out, and I said, "There's a park here," and it's a nice, beautiful park, nice hills, green grass, very well kept, manicured fields. And I said, "Wow, there's a park here. It'd be a great place to walk my dog because she likes to walk and get out the house like most animals do." And so I like that because you go to that place where, based on your position in life, the island can be the retreat or the island can be the cage. And I like that kind of back and forth interpretation with that. And so that brings me another question to mind, and it kind of talks about how we understand that God does have plans for us, but with those plans, He has rules for us. And a lot of people think that the rules that God has for us limit us. And so some of us who have been, and I say some of us because I'm not, because I know all of us have done something off the wall crazy at some point. Like you have your former addicts, your former drunks, your former this, your former that, whatever, who have come into the faith, and they are so glad to have God's law. And those of us who have been in the faith, you know, mom's a pastor, my dad's a pastor, my brother sings in a choir, you know, all these kind of things. And so they're in it, and they may not have that same appreciation for God's law. Could you kind of bring that together with how you use that poem?
I can. Again, as a Lutheran, you know, we divide law and gospel. You know, sometimes people say, "Oh, the Old Testament's the law, and there's no grace." And the New Testament, it's full of grace. There's no laws, there's nothing you have to do. Well, that's not exactly so, as we see it. And in the poem here, it's you know, the grace is that I'm able to find something on the island. I'm contributing something. I'm getting something. It's a continuation of something I did before, something similar. There's an ecumenical slant to it. Is all I'm going to say. And you know, and I've used the image of an island as a place of safety, a place of being, you know, sheltered from the sea for a bit, and of being able to rest and recharge myself. And in this particular case, for no very good reason, it so happened that, okay, you need to leave the island. And it said, well, there was never a set time that I had to be, and I certainly wasn't trying to overstay my welcome, because I thought I wasn't quite done with what I needed to do. But if that's the way it is, then I'm going to go back to the mainland, and I have a place there. And eventually, you know, I can maybe go back to an island or the island, or do something else. And I'm not worried about it. I don't bear bitterness. I'm not upset. I don't regret things. It's just, well, this is the way it is now, and there will be another time.
I remember as I was getting ready to prepare for the show, one of the things about the poem, and a lot of people said it in the reviews, it's a nostalgia associated with the poems and the collections that you do. And I started thinking about happy memories for me. And I have many of them, but one of my happy memories was when I was in high school. And I had entered this contest. It was a Black History contest, and I entered this contest 4 years. And the first 3 years, I kept losing. And I kept losing to the same guy. And then last year, the year prior to the fourth year, my teacher called me aside and said, "Hey, the reason why you're losing is because you're doing this, 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 this." No one had told me that. So I made sure to incorporate what she told me. So the fourth year, they took him out of the competition. And he was a judge in the competition. And then I was in the competition, I won. And then I went on to say that same speech on a local TV station in Detroit. And it was a great experience for me. It's a happy memory. And I was recognized in the school because it's during Black History Month. And there was a predominantly white school that came to our school. And we were kind of doing like a kumbaya, everyone hold hands, talk to each other, that type of thing. It was a great experience. And I was able to say that speech with this whole mindset. And so I asked our listeners, I said, hey, what about some of the memories, happy memories that you have? And so Sheila from Detroit says this. Her happy memory was this. For me, graduating from high school, I believe that this will be a new chapter in my life. I was ready to conquer the world. All my hopes and dreams I would fulfill. It's a passage of rights. And I thought about that, Sheila, and thank you, Sheila, for that comment. I thought about that. So I wondered if you had a poem that could kind of reflect the happy thoughts or moving on to better places where the dream is alive and your purpose is bright. You can see it in the distance. Do you have a poem that you can share with us that kind of reflects those sentiments?
Well, I do, although I will say I'm into nostalgia a lot because I have more yesterdays than tomorrows. You know, unless I'm going to live longer than anyone else in my family. And I do have one about attending everyone's 60th birthday party for my high school class. But is there one where I'm looking ahead at some things? Well, I have one of those too. And let's see where that... I'm looking through the book. Oh, here it is. It's a view backwards from the bend. Every now and then, my path will bend. If no mists fill the valley, if cloudless skies permit, I can gaze where once I went. On ribbons of paths straddling the ridge were elusive apparent destinies, downward sloping towards sunset beaches that so thinly disguise the cul-de-sac. Stretching to the sky, several towers, some unfinished, others now collapsing. The classrooms with closed windows preventing fragrant air to alleviate the staleness. Not knowing the land where lemon trees bloom, scholars scour the text repeatedly for some non-existing enlightenment, refusing to look at the external. Occasionally, a face that I see or a song wafting melody to me reminds me of my travels on that path, reconnecting me to what I loved, even if no longer can be found, even if it no longer can be loved. As quickly as it comes, it disappears, and I follow the bend to straighter paths. The end.
That's beautiful, author, and it really kind of captured what I was saying about that whole nostalgia thing. And I love the quote you just said. I'm going to share it on my page here. I just love the quote.
Oh, great.
Saying I'm into nostalgia because I have more yesterdays than tomorrows. And so you hold on to what you have. You hold on to the good times, the good memories, what you learn over time. I just love that. It just resonates with me. So I truly like that.
It's really nice. We talked about social media and people being more connected all over the world and not to, their neighborhoods. Probably the largest part of my Facebook friends, and I'm talking maybe 700-800, are high school classmates. I was in a class of 600 that's in suburban Philadelphia. And it's amazing. I'm connected and closer to people whom I really wasn't that close to or knew that well in high school for whatever reason. We weren't in the same activities. We didn't have classes together. We sort of knew each other. But over the years, and with the one reunion we've had since Facebook and that, I mean, it's amazing. And what really is interesting, some of us have to agree not to discuss politics. But it's interesting that, and I tolerate someone posting something that's not my political views if it's someone I've known from high school, 45 years now or more. Someone with the same opinion, the same meme comes up, it's like, I'm going to block him or block everything from this site. But what unites us from high school is still the music from the days of AM, FM radio, that great divide. And there's someone whose vote cancels out mine, I'm sure. But they post a song I like, I'll post another one from the same artist. And that's really beautiful to nurture those relationships. And in many ways, it's deeper than what they were before.
I love hearing that, especially when you said the great divide with AM and FM radio. I just love that author because I'm not that young where I don't remember that. So that's absolutely fantastic.
And I remember when you had FM radio, it was progressive radio. It wasn't all decided, the playlist. You could actually call up a DJ and ask for something. I was friends with a DJ from a very small FM station near us. And it was really nice because it was very free form. And you can experiment and do some different things. And it gives me a lot of happy memories.
And that's why I come back to just how adequate the title of your poetry collection is. It's just places and times, and remembering those. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and when we come back, we'll have our final segment and our final thoughts from author. He's also going to tell you where you can find him online and where you connect with him and what his other projects are. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, friends. I'm Dr. Mike Spalding, inviting you to listen to great Bible teaching on the Transforming Word radio show and podcast. All shows are available on iTunes and Stitcher. Search for the Transforming Word and subscribe for notification of new shows. You may also listen to every episode from my website, www.thetransformingword.com. In addition to the Transforming Word, I want to make you aware of my interview, news, and opinion show, Soaring Eagle Radio. If you're interested in engaging conversations related to a variety of topics not covered by typical news media, then check out Soaring Eagle Radio. You may subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher, and you may listen to every episode on my website, www.soaringeagleradio.com. For more information on my ministries, please email me, Pastor Mike, at cclohio.com. Again, that's Pastor Mike at cclohio.com. Thank you for listening to these shows, and please leave me a note when you do. God bless you today.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. And we are back, and you are listening to the final segment of The Right Stuff here on PJC 104.5. I have been having a fantastic time with our guest co-host and contributor today, author Turfa. He is the author of the book Places in Time, which is a collection of poetry about his experience from traveling in Europe, Mexico, and America, and also just a lot of things he learned along the way. It's a collection of poetry steeped in nostalgia and steeped in learning and reliving the happy times we had in life. And author, once again, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your poetry collection with us on this show. It really just excites me to have you here. So I want to give our listeners a chance to know what are some of your other projects you have coming up.
Well, Parker, thank you so very much for having me. We're both Electio authors. And it's a nice group or family, I would say. It was my mentor, Joanna Carrasca, whom you know.
Oh, yes.
Who, a couple years ago, said to me, messaged me, I think your poetry is good enough for publishing. Have you thought about it? And, yeah, I'd love to. Help me. And she said, well, why don't you contact my publisher, and that's Electio. But it's been really great, and I think Electio publishing.com is the best place to obtain the book. They'll throw in a free ebook as well. And I think that's a very nice bargain. Although if someone was wanting to go on the Amazons or any other site, that's fine too. Well, I have an extensive web presence, as you know. I have a personal Facebook page. I also have the Arthur Turfa, Poems of Places and Times, Reflected community, where I talk more about what I'm doing poetically and things like that. And in terms of writing and other things, I've probably had about a dozen readings in the year that the book came out. I'm going to be back in Charleston end of June on a Monday night with Jim Lundy and his Monday night poetry. I'm a moderator at several Google Plus poetry communities. One is Poets. That's the large one. It's about 5,000 people. I'm one of maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 moderators. I'm one of 7 moderators for the Words on Fire community. I'm also in Peppered Poets. That's more of a guild where we work through people's, several drafts of a poem ourselves as well, and it's a very helpful place. I have a blog, and it's on Blogspot. It's called Some Poetry, and Some Poetry, which is Some Poetry, Poetry and Thoughts by Arthur Turfa, and that's an A.W. Turfa.blogspot.com. I had to put the middle initial in because I did this through school. I already had an A. Turfa, so I had to dredge up my middle initial, and I have that. And that's not just poetry. That's I put in music I like, some other things going on, and I really have fun with it. And I've had almost 35,000 hits. I should break that tonight. From about 70 countries. I'm at 333,000 or thereabouts hits on the Google Plus. I have some collections, one for the book, one for reviews, for audio recordings some friends are kindly making of their favorite poems from the book. I have a second manuscript tentatively called Accents that I entered somewhere in the contest for a publisher. Hopefully they'll publish it, or if not, I'll find someone. I probably have enough for another book out there, but I'm going to hold off on that. It's really nice, and I'm working on a YA, young adult novel, loosely based on some of my childhood experiences. The names have been changed to protect me.
To protect the innocent.
Yeah, the innocent and me and anyone else. But I was working on that pretty well until the floods hit here in South Carolina in mid-October. I want to get back to it, and I realized I want to expand it a little bit to my teenage years, and it's interesting. There's more of an aspect of faith coming up in that, because it's kind of unconventional. In fact, I will say also, once in a while, although not too often, thankfully, people will say, "Oh, do you write Christian poetry?" And I say, "No." I write poetry that has Christian themes in it, but I don't like hitting people over the head with religion. I don't like being that blatant. Maybe there's times for it, but I try to be, and I'm going to mention the names of T.S. Eliot and W.H. Auden, who were devout Christians, excellent poets, and the themes are there. But you could read them and be lost in the poetry and not really get at first glance what they're talking about, but that could have a subtle influence. Now, I'm in no wise close to being their equals, but they inspire me. I also like Rainer Maria Rilke, his poetry. I read all kinds of things, and you know, these people show up in the blog, so that's a good place to find out about me.
I think that just shows you have a lot on your plate, and there's a lot that you're doing, and just shows you that God is taking you so many different places. And poetry does have that unique ability to bridge the gaps between people and bridge all kind of things. Poetry can be.
Let me also say, Parker, before I forget, please, I do have author pages on Goodreads and Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And the one on Goodreads is synced to my blog.
Okay. And so you're connected via Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and Goodreads. And so our listeners will know that.
Goodreads and Amazon.
And Amazon.
I have an author page on Amazon. You can see the reviews as you've been kind enough to read some of them tonight.
And that's the nice part about it when you talk about all this kind of things and how you're connecting with people. And I understand what you mean about not saying I don't write Christian poetry. I'm a Christian who's a poet. And that's a big question on this show that we go back and forth on. There are some people who say we are Christian writers. There are some people who say we are writers who are Christian. I honestly don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it. I don't know. I know what God called me to do, and I know how he called me to do that. And I think that's what's more important than trying to define that. And so with that in mind, authors, we get ready to end our show because we're out of time. I want you to take a couple of few minutes, maybe 30 seconds a minute, to kind of encourage the writers out there who are listening to the show. They know that they have the gift to write, that God gave them that gift to write, and they haven't picked up the pen to write. Could you encourage them today?
I certainly can, Parker. I would encourage them to read as much as they can, to imitate, and as they imitate, they will find their own voice and style. I would encourage them to have a mentor, either an online one, to be part of a poetry group, a legitimate one, not one that's going to publish something and have everyone say, that's wonderful, that's really great, but where they can say, hey, I don't know if this works, but to don't give up and to navigate your way through, because poetry is very trendy these days, but the true poet's going to hang in there.
Author, thank you again for joining us on the show today. Really appreciate having you here, and would love to have you back sometime soon. Okay?
No problem, Parker. You let me know, and any of those young poets out there need encouragement, come to me. I'll help you as I've been helped myself.
And we were talking today to author Terfa. He is the author of the poem collection called Places in Time. And you can go ahead, Loving My Brother today, buy a copy of his book. You will be blessed by this book. You can get it. It's available at Amazon.com or our publisher site, Alexia Publishing. Simply go to either of those sites and buy his book. And please, if you enjoyed the book, leave a review. Authors love reviews. It helps us to breathe at night. It helps us to sleep at night when we have reviews. So go ahead, Loving My Brother, buy a copy of Places and Times today. Don't forget to join me on the Parker J. Cole Show Saturdays at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time right here on WPJC 104.5. And then join our newest host of the PJC Media Network, Deborah Lassiter with Dovetails, Sundays at 2:30 p.m. right here on the PJC Media Network. Thank you so much for joining me. I am the queen of Tuesday nights, Parker J. Cole, and you have a wonderful, blessed day. Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Right Stuff. Follow Parker online at parkerjcole.com. To hear this show and other shows, visit the show archive at therightstuffradio.wordpress.com. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.